Hello team and welcome to another tutorial. I'm Davinci Gerald. I'm going to discuss some ways to prepare yourself for doing voiceover work. Okay, I've got to get these headphones off because there's a delay and it's totally messing with my mind. I feel like I'm in a time warp. We're going to talk about hardware and we're also going to talk about software because voiceover work is something that any actor out there nowadays can get into pretty inexpensively and it pays pretty well. I've got some voiceover clients that I work with and I'm going to show you some of the basics of how to get that done. You do need to invest a little bit. So the first thing you need is a good microphone. What I have here is an Aston Origin. Now this microphone, it's a cardioid microphone. It picks up everything going this way where the mic's pointed, and then it slowly attenuates or thins out the sound of everything behind it, right? So it forms a shape that's kind of like a heart. This one right here is, I think, the best bang for your buck out there on the market. It sounds amazing. Rumor has it that this is one of Stevie Wonder's favorite microphones. And I think it cost me around $250, which is, that's a pretty good investment for some people. But I have paying clients. I have auditions all the time. In fact, I'm getting ready to record a voiceover audition right now. And so I thought, why don't I just make a tutorial? Because I've got all this stuff. And I know people ask me all the time, well, what does it take to do voiceover work? This is another example of a good microphone. This is a CAD, C-A-D. It's a GXL 2400. And this was actually probably the first really good quality voiceover microphone that I ever bought. These are all metal construction. It's got a large diaphragm capsule on the inside and behind this screen. This one also has a cardioid pattern, and you can kind of see, if I point there, right there, that's the pattern that it's being drawn right there to show you that this microphone picks up what's in front and it kind of cuts off the sound in the back. You can kind of go to the side of this microphone and you'll hear a little bit of thinning out of the voice, but these have a proximity effect. If you're within 2 to 5 inches, they really make your voice sound very rich. This mic, the CAD GXL 2400, I think it retails for a little over $100, which isn't bad. And it's a professional sounding microphone. I would say this is kind of like a Lexus or a really high-end Toyota of microphones. It's not like a Mercedes or, some exotic sports car sound, which you can spend thousands of dollars on microphones. You really can. And I get what I think will give me the best quality sound. This one's kind of crisp and really clear. The bass end of it is apparent. It's there, but it's not super warm. It's kind of more of a really crisp, clean sound coming out of this microphone, which I actually really like. This microphone, however, the one that we're using right now, this is my favorite microphone. I feel like it has a nice presence to it. It's warm, but honest. And these are these sort of weird description words, warm and clear and those sort of things. As you start to test out more microphones, you'll get a feeling for that. Maybe you can go to like a music store and say, hey, I'd like to test some of your cardioid microphones, some of your voiceover style microphones. And then maybe you can hear each one of them because they react differently to different voices. And that is a really big investment for you. I really honestly think if you're just getting started, you can pay about, I would say, a minimum of $100 to get a really good microphone. There are some that are less expensive than that, but you can definitely hear the difference. There's another microphone out there that's really popular for voiceover people who are doing it at home in their home studios, and it's called a Blue Yeti. And that one is really actually pretty good for the money. It's about $150. I haven't looked it up in a while. I've never owned one, but I have used it before because I've worked for employers who had them. And the nice thing about that is it can go straight into your computer via a USB cable. And it also has some knobs on there that you can control how sensitive it is, how much gain you're getting out of it. I tend to use more professional mics. I think, that is considered a professional mic probably, but These have an XLR connection, right? Which is like a standard for any kind of audio, professional audio stuff, XLR cables. So this one is connecting an XLR, and the way I get it to my computer is by this really nifty little thing. It'll probably make a little noise as I play with it. You might hear some scratching sounds. This is called a blue icicle. This has a little knob on here that you can turn up the volume or down. This is up the gain and down the gain. And then it takes a USB connection that goes right into your computer. USB on one end, XLR on the other. I mean, this basically, anything that you can plug in with an XLR, you can then get into your computer via USB. I just chose to go that route so that I can use my mics in other circumstances. Basically, if you want to just get started and you just want to have a mic that goes straight into your computer, get a Blue Yeti. That one, because it has all the components and electronics inside of it, it's actually a pretty big microphone. These are relatively small compared to that, but then you can get yourself a blue icicle. There's lots of other interfaces out there. Look for the ones that have great reviews and go for that. You want a USB to XLR, and you want to get a pretty good microphone. You want a mic stand right here, and you also want one of these is a pop filter. These are pretty inexpensive to get at a music store, or you can get them online. Oh, you'll need a good pair of headphones, and you want something like this that's over the ear. These are my favorites. In fact, I've had a pair for 14 years that just went out. One of the earpieces kind of died on me while I was recording some music about 4 days ago or 5-6 days ago. And so I immediately bought another pair. It's the Sony MDR V6. All right. Now this one's especially for digital, it says. And they've been around forever. They're just really great quality, and it's about $100 as well. Now, if you don't want to spend that much, you can look around. These are studio monitors. I use these to mix my productions that I do for companies and things like that when I want to make sure that the music sounds good compared to the voices, compared to the sound effects and all those things, because these sound absolutely pure and true. It gives you what's called a flat frequency response, which means it doesn't like boost the bass like Beats headphones might do, and it doesn't accentuate your voice more than it should be. That's something that you want to do later on after you do the recording. And so this will help you hear exactly what things sound like after you record, while you're recording, and then after you start mixing it to kind of get the sound that you want out of your voice, to get the richness out of it. So that's it as far as hardware. And I'm going to go ahead and stop here because I want to record on the screen the software. There's some free software out there, which I'm now using for my voiceover work, and I think you'll really like it. So I'm going to cut this and go to that. Okay, so what we have here is the Blackmagic Design homepage. Odds are that if you're a working actor, especially if you're getting into indie films, you're going to be working with this company's tools in front of you. On this website, you can get a product for free that is a really great tool for editing voiceovers. So you go to their product window right here, go to that tab on top of the Blackmagic homepage, and then you're gonna scroll on down. There's some options and things up here because they have so many things to offer filmmakers and creative types. But you're going to go down until you see editing, color correction, and audio post-production. They have a software suite called Davinci Resolve. So click Learn More, and you go to the Davinci Resolve page. You could also just do a Google search for Davinci Resolve, and whatever version they're on at the time, it'll show up somewhere, and you can click on it. But make sure you get it from the original creators, Blackmagic Design. So they're on version 16 now, and you can just simply click download, and then you have these options. You can use a Mac version, a Windows version, or even a Linux version. And they have two different versions of their software, regular Davinci Resolve 16 now and Davinci Resolve Studio. Now Studio is, I think that's the one you have to pay for, and it has some really extra bells and whistles for those who are really working into some high-end professional stuff. We're just getting into voiceover, and this is just about the beginning voiceover artist who's an actor who wants to start to maybe try to get into another stream of income. So whatever different kind of computer you're using, whether it's a Windows machine or a Mac, just click on that and you have an option to download. And I would suggest registering your software and putting your information in here because it's free anyway, and it's nice to be able to have it registered in case you have any questions and you want to send them an email. And then you'd fill all this information out and you'd click register and download. I'm not going to do that now because I actually own the studio version of this, because I also own their cameras, 2 of their cameras. So it comes with a camera, the studio version. These guys are so awesome. Started off doing color correction and color grading for movies, high-end stuff, and now they've got a whole entire suite available, and they're even offering it for free. So let's just close out of this browser window because we don't need that now that you know how to get it. And here we are. I've already opened up a Davinci Resolve page for us here. Now this is a brand new project, and when you first open up a project and you give it a name, we're just going to call this VO tutorial, it'll open to this page, the media page. Now on the bottom you see these different tabs. These are how you navigate through this software. It's really cool that they're giving this out to people because it has so many things that it can do. You can edit movies or commercials or YouTube videos or whatever. This first one is called the cut page. This is a brand new release that comes with this software. This is for really fast editing when you're in a hurry. And then this is your standard editing version, which you probably would recognize if you've done anything with Adobe Premiere or Final Cut or anything like that. I highly suggest this software over actually kind of either one of those. Right now, this is my go-to option. I do a lot of stuff with Adobe, and I have over the years, and I started off doing Final Cut, but now this is really cool because you also have a visual effects tool. This is called the Fusion page, and then you have their really strong and powerful color correcting suite, which this is like high-end professional stuff. It's really awesome. If you ever get into making movies and you want to have great color correction, this is one of the main tools that your color corrector or your grading artist will use. The ones we're most interested in are this last 2. The Fairlight page, which is their audio editing and productions page, and then this is their delivery page where you will export or render your final voiceover or video if you were doing video editing. So to get started, first what we need to do is have a timeline that we can record onto. And to do that, for me, all I do is I just go to the edit page, hit File, New Timeline. You could also do Command N if you're on a Mac, or Control N. I think it'd probably be on a PC. And we'll just call this voiceover setup. Okay, so now everything changes. All of a sudden we have a new timeline here with some numbers across for how far along the line we're going, and you can see we could scroll through to 3, 4, 5 seconds and so on. So once you've got that set up, in this window up here you'll see there's a master folder. Here's your folders, by the way. If you make a bunch of folders for different projects or different voiceovers. And inside the folders, it will show here on this window what you have. And this is just a timeline that we just created. So now we can go to the Fairlight page where we can record audio. This is really amazing. So you see your audio 1, which is the track that we just created. When we created a timeline, we have a video track and an audio track where things are recorded. And here's our controls for navigating. We have rewind, fast forward, play, stop, and this little circle here, the record button. And this is for looping if you're recording or you were doing something and you wanted to go back to the beginning once it gets to the end and you're trying to keep listening over and over to something to kind of get it right. This is like a rubber band window that allows you to see some of the other tools and options that are there available to you. All right, so in track 1, we can click right here and name it. And let's say we're doing a voiceover and it's called Tutorial for Beginners. Okay, so we can name that so we know what's on this track. And now over here, we have a mixer, and you can see that the input says there's no input. So there's nothing for it to record from. And we want to set it up to record from our microphone, which is connected to the computer. That's really important. You have to set up an input. So you click in this window, and under the menu, you click Input, and here we are. So we have our inputs on this side, the source of the audio, and our outputs, the track that it's going to. You see this says Tutorial for Beginners, the right side and the left side. Okay, so we want to go ahead and pick this Blue Icicle microphone, and we want to select both of these, right and left, and hit Patch. Okay, so now it says the Blue Icicle is going to both of these different tracks. There's also a way, when you're doing voiceovers, it's also kind of nice to just record it in a mono track, which means there's only one signal coming through the middle, not on the left speakers and the right speaker like a stereo. But if you put them both going into the same side, then it basically becomes a mono signal. So we want to arm this track right here where we're going to be recording. We'll make this a little bigger so you can see it better. And we want to hit R for record. Now we can see that it's bouncing up and down. And I can also hear in my headphones what I'm saying, which is important because that's, when you're recording a voiceover, I kind of like to hear what I have to say sometimes. Now I'm going to turn down the volume a little bit, the input on my microphone on the Blue Icicle, so that it's not bouncing too high. When you record voiceover, you want to keep an eye out on these meters right here. Your audio 0 is considered like full volume. Anything that goes above 0 is considered a peaking sound. That means it's too loud to be heard clearly through the speakers. All right, and you don't want it to peak. So you want to turn down your input on your microphone so that it's bouncing somewhere as you speak at your normal volume. Somewhere you see it's getting lower as you hear my voice getting lower. It'll bounce somewhere between like -5 and -10. I think that's kind of good because that gives you a little bit of room to boost your voice a little later on. And you have what's called headroom. Right? This is headroom. It's giving you that red line to show you the loudest that it gets. Now this isn't quite peaking, which is great, but it's getting pretty close if I speak really loud. But this is the normal tone of voice that I want to use. You'll see the green, the yellow, and the red on your track. Okay, that's it. We're all set up. Our mic's ready to go. We've got our script on the screen in front of us, or hold it in my hand with an iPad. That way, if I have several scripts, I can just keep going through, and I don't have the risk of paper rustling. If I just slide my finger across the iPad, it doesn't make a lot of sound, but if I turn pages like this, sometimes you can hear that in the microphone, and so I prefer to use a digital script. The Golden Age. There was a time not long ago when Jews, Muslims, and Christians all lived together in harmony. This time in history is remembered as a golden age of tolerance because it lasted for several hundred years in the Iberian Peninsula. Prior to the 15th century, Muslim leaders of the Iberian Peninsula showed tolerance for Jews and Christians. The sacred book of the Muslims, the Quran, says that people can't be forced to convert, so they let the Jews and Christians keep their religions. But the Muslims did not grant them equality. they were forced to pay a tax that allowed them to practice their religions. Even with this tax, followers of the Jewish faith were very fortunate in comparison to the Jews throughout the rest of Europe. Okay, so now I'm going to stop this recording, and all I got to do for that is to hit the space bar. And now there we have our voiceover. So this is really great. It sounds pretty good, but there's a couple of things that we can do to make it sound better. In this effects window, actually, no, we're going to go here to this dynamics window. If you double click in here, you have some really standard tools that all recording artists use, whether you're a musician, a voice artist, a singer, it doesn't matter. They use compressors, which allow you to control how much volume you have. So when you're speaking a little more softly, it kind of boosts that up so that it matches the level of the words when you speak louder, or when you're singing and you whisper and you can barely hear it. It kind of boosts it a little bit. So a compressor really is great because you can see how these are bouncing up and down quite a bit. It allows that up and down bouncing from one word or one tone or note to the next to be a little less, so that things kind of match up and your natural voice is a little bit more clear. So we want to just activate that by pressing the compressor button. And already, as you see, we are recording and it's already kind of staying a little closer to the negative 10 point, which is kind of where you want it to be. And if you want to boost it a little louder, you can click what's called this makeup. This kind of helps you add a little bit more boost so that it can bounce somewhere between negative 10 and 0. You can see it right here. This is the input. This is the input of what we're saying, and this is the output of what we're getting when we add this compressor. Look over here, you can see it's kind of staying right in the red zone, but it's not peaking. And then if we take the compressor off, suddenly it's going way down, and we don't have quite that dynamic energy behind the voice that we would normally have. We'll click that again and get it right to where we want it. And there's a limiter over here that it kind of keeps it from being too loud, and allows you to kind of pick just how loud you want it to be. And you can put that limiter at like a -2 or a -1 or something like that. That way, if you do say something really loud, it'll kind of control that and keep it from peaking. And all you have to do is to activate that if you wanted to. Okay, so just adding that little bit helps. And then one other thing you can do is in this EQ, you can equalize it a little bit and kind of help you get a better sound. Kind of get your voice to sound really rich and natural the way you want it. We all kind of want our voice to sound a little better than it does when we record it, because in our head, our voice always sounds a little bit more bassy and a little bit warmer than it does when we hear the playback. But that's because our head is basically acting kind of like a megaphone and an echo chamber, and it's resonating that sound from our vocal cords to our ears. So we want to edit out all of our deep breaths that we take. So go to your edit page, which is the really fast way to do some editing. So religions, but there's a breath right there. Okay. So all you got to do is go in front of this breath, and you want to use the razor tool, which is right here, the blade. Click that and then cut that. And then you can go right there where the breath is. You can see it right there. That's the breath. You can click right there. Now go back to your arrow tool and select that, and then just hit delete. And so now, religions, but the Muslims, you won't hear the breath. So you'll go through your whole entire recording. Here's another one. I kind of know what they look like because I do this a lot. You see the waves, and then you'll see a little hump before that. So I'm going to go ahead and go here. Now, the fast way to edit is to use J, K, and L. K is a stop button. L takes it forward, and you can press it multiple times to go faster. K stops, and J goes backwards. And the more times you press it, the faster it goes. There's some shortcuts, and you can look those up. I won't go into all the details of what they are, but you can use that to really help you speed up your process and your workflow for editing. Okay, so if you mess up, it's no big deal. You just keep going. You pick up where you left off in a place that makes sense. You cut it out. Go to the part where you started it up and did it correctly, your correction. Cut it right there. Now, we'd select this. You can see it's in red. And now there's a forward delete key that comes, and it could be the function tool or something. If you have a full-size keyboard, it's usually an arrow pointing forward, and it says delete. If you click that, look what happens. Boom. It just sucks everything right back up that's ahead of you and gets rid of all that empty space that you just deleted. So that's pretty much it. Once you're done, we'll just say that's the whole recording. Oh, by the way, we can get rid of this part at the beginning where I was talking. The nice thing about these waveforms is it's an easy way to sort of visually see what the audio is like. So you can tell there's a big pause there. That's when the voiceover starts. So everything before that, we'll just start with the golden age. Let's say we have a title. So we'll cut that out. And then we'll cut out this big gap here, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, using our blade tool, delete that, and voila. Now there's some empty space. Oh, sometimes you'll see the waveforms disappear. That's just one of the little strange things that happens with this software when you're editing just audio. When you're just editing audio, sometimes you have to kind of click on stuff for the waveform to be visible as it's scrolling along. Okay, the rest of this is just us kind of talking. Now, instead of cutting this part, I'm just going to get rid of that by sliding it over. This is a little fader that'll fade the audio out. Since of the Jews throughout the rest of Europe. And boom, there's the end of our voiceover. And now, all we have to do is go to our delivery page right here. Okay. At the top, there's some presets for us. If we scroll all the way down, you'll see one that says audio only. That's a nice way to just kind of quickly get all the settings the way you want them. You'll notice now in this window where it says video export for this program or this project, there's nothing there. Everything's gray. The box isn't checked because it's just saying, okay, you want audio only? Got it. So click the audio tab. Here we have right here our settings to get this thing ready to go. So we don't want a QuickTime because it's not a video, and that's really what QuickTime is for. So let's go down and pick a WAV file. All right. Codec linear PCM is great. Bit depth 16 is great. This has other options there. You can go all the way up to 32-bit, which isn't really necessary. If you're doing higher quality, I'd say 24 isn't bad, but usually especially for an audition, 16 is fine. And then we don't want to render one track per channel. We only have one track altogether. I think just a main stereo track is fine. Because we put both the right and left channels into the same microphone, it's basically already considered a mono file. And everything, your voice is right in the middle, coming equally out of both ears. So let's name it right up here. Golden Age Introduction. Now we will browse and find a place for it. Let's just put it on our desktop. It's a WAV format. Save that. Now we want to add it to the queue to render because you can do multiple things at once. Let's say you recorded, like, for example, in these cases, I would record 7, 15, 20 of these scripts at one time. And I could record all of them, and then each one would be like a separate timeline. And then I can go through, pick the name of it, set it up, and then I could add all of them one at a time to this render queue. And then when you hit start render, it would output each one of these individually. And there you go. Hit start render, and you can see just how quickly this software works. It's taking that 1 minute voiceover, and it's done the whole thing in 9 seconds flat. One strange thing that I've tried to figure out about this software is why it adds a bunch of numbers to the name. And I think it's just some like technical specifications. But here, I'm just going to minimize this. We'll go to our, I'll drag it over. So here's the name of the file. It's A something something 001, which is the track number, the take number, I think, Golden Age. And then I don't know what this 00 or 000864 is. I don't know what that is. But you can just simply go through, rename it, just delete those different characters that you don't need. And voila, you've got your voiceover right there, ready to go and to send to your file. Now, sometimes, or to your client. Now, sometimes they want it in an MP3 format. And that's something that you may have to convert this into an MP3. Now, you can find all sorts of softwares for that, but you're always going to record your main version in a WAV file. And what I tend to do is I'll make my WAV file, and then I'll use an Adobe software called Media Encoder, and I'll turn it into an MP3. That's one of the things that I don't really see as an option with Davinci Resolve, is the ability to export MP3 files. It's just not really in the format list. But that's, again, part of that is because this is a professional software, and MP3 files are never really used in professional settings. They're just, consumer grade, quick, easy ways to sort of get audio out to people in a very small file size. So you'll have to find another solution, or just send them WAV files. If they insist on an MP3, you can easily look up some easy conversions out there. I think you can even use, if you're on a Mac, I think you can even convert something into an MP3 using iTunes or GarageBand. Just bring the file into GarageBand. There are ways to record in GarageBand as well, but as far as like quality and for a free software, nothing beats Davinci Resolve, and you don't have to have a Mac to use it. You can use it on a PC as well. Okay, guys, that about does it as far as my tutorial goes. However, there is one thing that's really important that I need to let you know about your setup. Okay, and I forgot to mention this before, so I'm going to do this before I end the tutorial here. It's very important that you record in a space that is acoustically neutral. That's the technical term for it. Or another word people use is dead. You want a dead space. Now, what that means is it needs to not really have a bunch of echoes, and it needs to be a space that's kind of quiet. Obviously, you don't want to have airplanes flying overhead, or construction noise, or dogs barking, all of those sort of things that are just, not really allowed in a voiceover recording. So I do mine in here, and most of the time it's pretty good because I've got a lot. You'll notice there's a lot of stuff all over the office here, and the walls and that sort of thing, books and everything. There's a big curtain in the supply closet back behind me, and that actually helps to deaden the space. It means if this was just an empty room with four walls, then the sound waves as you speak will bounce off of the walls and come back, and then bounce back the other way. They will reflect literally back and forth like a mirror off of the different walls in the room. So if you ever recorded in a professional studio, you'll notice a couple things. They usually have this kind of stuff on the walls: acoustic treatment, acoustic sound treatment, or the walls, if you pay a lot of attention, will also have different angles on them. They won't be straight square like a regular room in a house or in a building is. They'll be canted this way or open that way, because that keeps the sound waves from bouncing back and forth over and over again, because they're angled straight at each other, like this. And then you have sound waves going back and forth, and you can create like a really bad sounding room space. There's a little tip that I like to use. I think this room's mostly pretty quiet and dead. It's not perfectly quiet. I have one on the other side of this wall that I use for my deliverables when I'm really trying to record something for a client and they need to have me do it at home or in my studio here in the house. because that room is completely dead. There's nothing going on in there because the walls are loaded with stuff to treat it. So, to treat it so that it's acoustically nice and clean. And a shortcut you can use is two things. One, people go into their closet because your closet is lined with clothes. Especially if you have a larger closet, that's nice because you can take a laptop, a microphone, take your software and go for it. And the clothing acts like this acoustic foam does, and it allows the room to pretty much be dead, and the sound waves don't bounce around and reverberate all over the place. So that'll help you sound a lot better and more professional. If you don't have a big enough closet, or you don't want to drag all of your gear into the closet and record, then what I like to do is to take some of this. You can get some of this stuff on Amazon. I'm going to put links to a lot of these things, to the things that I've been talking about, in the description below this. But basically, I get a box, a cardboard box. Here, I'll grab one. I brought one in. Something like this. This is just one I found in my daughter's room, so she used it for a project or something like that. But and you put this behind the microphone. Let's say this is the mic and you're talking into it. You put it behind the microphone and put some of this acoustic treatment, maybe glue it or something into it. That will help to keep reflections from the wall bouncing back into this microphone. Okay, so once you do that and you surround your mic with some acoustic treatment, or you find a room and a space that's really dead and doesn't have a whole lot of vibrations and walls that bounce sound off of each other because they're covered in things, you're ready to go. You've got all you need to record voiceovers and start auditioning, and then you can go to different websites and post your voiceover samples and start getting work and getting paid to do it. So there you have it. You want to get into doing voiceovers, you want an extra stream of income, that is a great way to start. And most of those tools you can get for less than $100, if not for free. So that about does it for this tutorial for voiceover for beginners. Again, my name's Davinci Resolve, and this has been a tutorial made just for you as an actor. Be creative, continue to hone your craft, continue to work hard, continue to believe in yourself, and there will be something out there for you, and you'll just get better and better as you continue to move forward.